want us to look at a passage in the Gospel of Luke today. Chapter 22, this is about the Last Supper. And I'm just going to read verse 19. It says, Jesus took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, the disciples, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." What I have here is a little pocket communion set that was given to my grandfather when he was ordained in 1941. And it has the sterling silver pieces in it. They're stamped on the back, sterling silver. There's a city mark that indicates Birmingham, England, a duty mark indicating the Queen Victoria's era, and there's a date letter indicating 1851 as a manufacture date. So this was an antique when my grandfather received it. Why do we take the Lord's Supper? Well, Jesus told us. Every time we take it, we do so in remembrance of him. I'm going to come back to this at the very end. This is not the first time in the Bible that we see times of remembrance, of going back and thinking about something. I'm going to take you back to Deuteronomy 7:18, when Israel was about to go into the promised land. Moses is giving kind of his last review and words to the people. In Deuteronomy 7:18, it says, this is Moses talking to the people, "You shall not be afraid of them," the people in the promised land that they had to conquer. "You shall not be afraid of them, but you shall remember what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all of Egypt." So what were they to do? They were to remember not what they did, but what God did. You catch that? Now let me take you to Joshua. You're familiar perhaps with, this is the next phase. They are actually rallied to go across into the promised land. They have not hit Jericho yet, but they're about to. And they come to the waters of the Jordan River, and it's very high. It's higher than usual. And so Joshua gathers the people together and says, "Get prepared for tomorrow. God's going to reveal himself." And he tells the priest to take the Ark of the Covenant and step into the Jordan River. And as soon as they do, the water pushes back and they walk out on dry ground. In fact, it says firm ground. They were planted firmly in the ground. And all of Israel crossed over the Jordan at that point on dry ground. And the water did not continue to flow until after the priests who were carrying the ark go across the river themselves. But before they did, Joshua commanded the people, one man from each tribe, to go into that riverbed and take out a stone, one stone for each tribe. And they took these stones to Gilgal, where they were staying the night. And he had this great speech that you can read in chapter 7. I'm just going to read verses 21 and 22. And he addresses the people and he says, "When your children ask their fathers in times to come, 'What do these stones mean?' then you shall let your children know Israel passed over this Jordan on dry ground." See, those stones were gathered together as a monument, as a memorial, not for what man did, but what God did. It was a memorial, it was a monument to what God had done for them. One of my favorite passages in the Bible, my favorite books in the Bible, is Nehemiah. I'm intrigued at his leadership. I'm intrigued at what the Lord did through him. I'm intrigued at how he inspired the people and they followed him. And if you are familiar with the story, Nehemiah went back to Jerusalem, the city of his fathers. The walls had been absolutely rubble for decades. And he went back to inspire the people to rebuild the walls. And they start rebuilding the walls. And about halfway up, they get opposition from Sanballat and Tobiah. They were influencing the local Arabs to rise up and fight against God's people in the walls of Jerusalem. And they weren't done yet. So Nehemiah calls on all the people to grab weapons of war, They grabbed spears, they grabbed swords, they grabbed bows, and they went to the wall. And here in chapter 4 is where we see Nehemiah give this inspirational speech. He says, I looked and I rose and said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. There's more to the speech, but that's the most memorable. I love it. What did he say first? Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. So Moses, he says, remember what God has done for you. Remember his works. Joshua says, remember the Lord, who he is. He is awesome. He is great. So today, I just want you to look around you. There may be some objects around you that you've saved because of the memories. You may look back on moments. And I want you to do that. I want you to think back on your 12 months. And I want you to consider, just pause and reflect on, number one, who God is. Who God is. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. And then I want you to reflect on what he has done for you. Maybe it's an object in the room, something you've kept, and it's a reminder of what God has done for you. And when you do that, will you praise God for the work that he's done in your life? Praise God for who he is. The deeds he has done that you could never dream or imagine. Let us not revel in ourselves, but revel in what God has done in our lives. Amen. God bless you.